Hello, my friends. It's Matt. This is a 10-minute Bible Hour podcast, and for the last few days, we have been talking about a very angry Nehemiah. In Nehemiah 5, he is super mad because he's found out that a handful of jerks have been violating the written letter of the law of the Bible, the Old Testament, as well as the obvious spirit of the law of the Old Testament, the Bible, and they've been exploiting their fellow countrymen. This is returning exile on returning exile crime, and Nehemiah is furious about what is going on. But I fear that for you and me, if we think about this stuff and Nehemiah's charges against them in light of modern economics, we might not be mad enough, and we might think, oh, Nehemiah is overreacting. That wasn't fair. That's a character flaw on his part. I don't think it's the case. I think Nehemiah is absolutely in the right, and as is usually the case, because he's very good at Bible, I think Nehemiah is reading the Bible well and is absolutely correct to be morally outraged over the behavior that's going on and to demand immediate corrections to what is happening. But we're not quite done looking at the stuff that Nehemiah would have had in his head from the Bible yet. So we're going to have Jeffrey play a little bit of music right now, and then we're going to pick up where we left off last time around. Okay, well, I keep hinting at this year of Jubilee thing, and this is the way it apparently worked. Leviticus 25:8, count off 7 Sabbaths of years, 7 times 7 years, so that's 49, so that the 7 Sabbaths of years amount to a period of 49 years. So I clarified a thing that's right there in the text. Good job, Matt. Then have the trumpet sounded everywhere on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the Day of Atonement. Sound the trumpet throughout your land. Consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. Each one of you is to return to his family property, and each to his own clan. The 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. Do not sow and do not reap what grows of itself, or harvest the untended vines, for it is a jubilee, and it is to be holy for you. Eat only what is taken directly from the fields. In this year of jubilee, everyone is to return to his own property. If you sell land to one of your countrymen or buy from him, do not take advantage of each other. You are to buy from your countryman on the basis of the number of years since the Jubilee, and he is to sell to you on the basis of the number of years left for harvesting crops. How clever. So you got this thing where every 50 years it all more or less resets. How much are you feeling the impulse toward that right now? How many times have you sat around with your friends and looked at the state of things and inflation and interest rates and how much houses cost and how much rent is and how much people get paid or don't get paid, how much groceries cost, how much gas costs, how much cars cost now? And you're like, how is anybody supposed to do this? How's it going to work? We need some kind of thing where we just fix it all in one day and everybody cuts everybody some slack and there's some kind of release to this pressure valve. And if just in one day or 1 year we could flip everything back to something that makes more sense, that would be great. And then everybody's like, yeah, but that's never going to happen. And that's the end of the conversation. But it seems like the obvious solution, right? That's kind of what this year of Jubilee thing is. Except instead of it just getting horrible and then one day a bunch of people at a Chili's decide that we're going to fix it all in 1 year, instead everybody knows it's coming for 50 years. And so one of the questions I always had when I first heard about this was like, well, then I would just wait until year 49 and I'd do this, or like I'd make sure I'd only buy things in year 1. But no, it accounts for all of that. It knows how human nature is. The Bible understands economics. And it says, like, you got to build this in. You got to prorate it. It paraphrases mine, but that's exactly what's being described. You got to prorate it and stuff when, based on how many years are left until the next year of Jubilee. So it's all accounted for, and it seems like this worked. There's also the idea of fields laying fallow and also people's bodies being fallow for a year, just having a year to sit and refresh and recover, and households that were in complete decline, where people had to make desperate moves to try to get by. All of a sudden, there's a restoration. There's a year of Jubilee. Houses are put back together. Families are reassembled properly. Land is restored. Ancestral homes are restored. And in doing so, the idea is we got to keep this people together. We can't pit them against themselves. We can't train them and incentivize them to exploit each other all the time On top of it just being economically ruinous, it breeds a cynicism, a dark cynicism, one that we feel in my country right now from all sides of the political spectrum. There's a mistrust of everybody and everything. That is what unchecked exploitativity does to society. It is ruinous. Imagine how different we might feel toward each other if there was some sort of thing baked into our rhythm, a Sabbath of Sabbaths, where we let stuff go with each other and we fixed what was broken, and everybody's clinging to the bottom rung suddenly isn't clinging to the bottom rung anymore. And anybody who's like, screw it, everything's ruined anyway, I'm just going to flip over the table of life, I can't win this game, and I'm going to go cause chaos and hurt people. Well, now all of a sudden, they're not incentivized to do that anymore because the game's about to turn over on its own and you're going to be right back in the game. Nobody needs to go do desperate things because you'll get back on your feet. That would be an amazing pressure release valve, something we very much lack in our society right now. And if anything, the way we try to simulate this is with the exact opposite of peace. We just try to schedule a war every now and then and hope that somehow that'll stimulate the economy and unify people. It's a very twisted up thing. I like my country, but my goodness, we do have a few problems right now. So you add all of this stuff up, the concept of lending and not debt, or rather not interest being charged. There's a total prohibition here on exploitativeness and all that stuff that we just read. Every bit of that language says, do not treat your brothers and sisters in this way. And Nehemiah, back here in Nehemiah chapter 5, he's been fixated on getting the wall built and fending off the enemies. And finally, that stuff gets whipped. And now there's time to pay attention to some other things. And what does he discover? Well, all of these principles that we just looked at in Exodus and Leviticus have been violated by a handful of people behaving deeply antithetically, not just to the explicit letter of the law, but absolutely in defiance of the spirit of the law as well. They're not reading the room. They're not reading the moment. They're acting like scabby dirtbags. And now, after 3 days of conversation, we're ready to see what Nehemiah is going to do about it. And hopefully we are properly outraged along with him so that we can feel the rhythms of this passage that much better. I really enjoyed this week. I thought that was a lot of fun. I had fun digging through that. Thanks for thinking about it with me. All right, that's plenty for now. I'm Matt. This is a 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.